All right, good morning, everyone. We're convening info briefing with the Joint Committees on Energy and Environmental Protection, Education, and Higher Education and Technology. It is Tuesday, July 13th, 10 a.m., and some of us are here in room 325, some on Zoom, and this is also being streamed on YouTube at the Hawaii State House of Representatives YouTube site. And I'm here with Chairs Woodson and Takayama, and some members of our committee are also on the Zoom and in the room, and others may be joining us. So we're here today to hear from the University of Hawaii and Department of Education about their progress on their respective net zero by 2035 goals. And we just want to get an update on what the progress is on achieving these goals, what have been some of the challenges or lessons learned, and how we can work together to make sure these goals are, there's progress moving forward to achieve these goals, as we move forward. So I guess I'll defer to see if Chairs Woodson or Takayama want to make any comments before we start.
Thank you, Chair Lowen, for this opportunity. I think it is a very important discussion. If I may stand corrected, but I believe that the Department of Education and the University of Hawaii system in aggregate consume the most energy in the state of Hawaii, excluding maybe the Department of Defense. And so I'm grateful for this discussion, and I look forward to hearing what the two organizations have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank Chairs Lowen and our education chair as well, Chair Woodson, for this opportunity. Particularly in the case of the University of Hawaii, a large chunk, if not the equivalent of all the tuition that our students pay, go to pay for our electricity bills at the UH. So it's hugely important for us to meet this goal of net zero by 2035. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to our testimony.
Great, thank you. I guess we're going to start with University of Hawaii first. So if you want to, whoever's here, introduce yourself, and whoever's with you, and we'll go ahead and hear your presentation. After that, we'll move on to Department of Education, and then we'll do questions at the end of both presentations. So I don't know, Jan, if you want to start.
Thank you, Chair Lowen. Good morning, Chair Woodson, Chair Takayama. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present on this matter. As you all have pointed out, energy management, consumption, all of that has a great impact on not just our financial bottom line, but our operational issues as well. And so this is something that the university really takes seriously, and we try to approach managing all of our kind of energy related projects and initiatives in a strategic way, so that we maximize the dollar, so to speak, and try to get our greatest bang for our buck in terms of savings, as well as future investments. And so with me today, we have Miles Topping, who's actually our energy manager with the Office of Sustainability. And he is primarily in charge of this whole area in terms of at least keeping track of where our usage is and identifying opportunities to reduce consumption as well as increase production, so to speak. And we also have Mike Unibasami, the Assistant Vice President, Associate Vice President with the community colleges. And he's also here to present what the community colleges have. But we'll start with Miles, who has a PowerPoint presentation that I think he will be sharing his screen on.
Yeah, I think the host has to enable screen sharing for me to share. So if there's a Zoom host, if they could enable sharing for me.
Okay, hang on, give us a second. We'll enable that.
Okay.
Okay, it should be good to go.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see my my presentation screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's see here. Okay, so just an agenda. It's going to go pretty quick. I'm just going to give you a high-level overview of the UH systems performance. Then going to dive into Manoa main campus and what's going on over there, and kind of a look ahead. And then Mike Navasami is going to tell us about some of the wonderful advancements that are happening at the community colleges. So let's get right into it, high level. Everybody's interested in our progress towards net zero. This comes right out of a report that is delivered to the legislature every year. This is it spans a fiscal year because that's when all of our billing and everything happens. It gives me a little time to prepare it, and that's what I publish every December. And this is also available on the web at hawaii.edu, sustainability energy. There's a little link at the bottom of this slide. You can click on that, or you can email me. I'll send you a link, hawaii.edu/sustainability. You can find it. But we are at about 5.9%. The exciting piece is that the percent change seems to be, exponentially increasing as we move forward. And the other thing to note here is that a lot of the systems that you have seen at the community colleges, which Mike is going to present on later, weren't producing, and we're not the energy that they produce now they weren't producing when this report was made. So the next year, the percent change is going to be even greater. So I'm excited to produce next year's report. But this is basically based on FY 1920. This is also a briefing that was pre-prepared for the Board of Regents, which we have to brief them every year. So it's on the web, Board of Regents, and state legislature reporting. Moving right along. So here's some of the trends. The utility purchased energy has been going down over the years, and the amount that we have been producing has been going up. So slightly different than net zero, but the amount of production is exponentially going up, and the amount of utility purchased is going down. Just a quick look at everything that you've seen these two slides on the last slide, these two charts. Our efficiency numbers are also going up, and the installed PV capacity is also going up exponentially. We also have a growing number of sustainably awarded buildings, LEED buildings, including 2 platinum and 12 gold. And you'll see this number go up. So every time we build a new building, we are adhering to sustainability requirements with a focus on energy. This is little known, but there's installed capacity around the state. We have, over 11 megawatts of installed capacity, which is quite a bit. Leeward's ahead now, and I talked about before, we're building another 2 megawatts at Manoa, so we'll see that number go up as well in the coming years. I left Kapiolani, the new system that I'm sure everybody has seen installed over the parking structure, over the parking lots, is not complete in the construction because of some wiring issue. It's all erected. It just hasn't been, the switch hasn't been flipped yet. So I'm still counting it as in construction. So going into the Manoa main campus, here again is that link that you can go to get more information. Here's an image of the recently completed approximately 1 megawatt PV on one of the parking structures. There's the larger parking structure in the background that is in construction now. So this was a breakdown that we did by campus affiliation to look at the entire system. You can see here that Manoa uses the most of the energy. The community colleges is represented by this orange wedge, and then we have Hilo and West Oahu. If we break down the community colleges, this orange wedge, and kind of spread it out, you can see the bars here, and this is Manoa again. It uses most of the energy. And 80% of the energy, so Manoa is like campus affiliation, so that includes JABSOM, the aquarium, Lion Arboretum, CTAR farms all over, scattered across the island chain. But 80% of that of this pie wedge, of this blue, is at Manoa main campus. So I just want to discuss a little bit about the magnitude of Manoa main campus. It's enormous. It has 18, it's R1 research facility with more than 18 research buildings. It's got housing buildings, it's got sporting arenas, it has libraries, which are actually very energy intensive, and a data center, which is, and all of these, many of these buildings have to be cooled with air conditioning 24/7 to keep them humidity and temperature controlled. There's a notional population of about 23,000 people at any given day, which is shocking. You walk on the campus and you think to yourself, wow, there's 23,000 people here right now. And 5,000 is staff and faculty and 18,000 students. So it's massive. I just want to make sure that you caveat sort of that, this blue bar with how much it uses with what's going on there, with all the research activity, just the population alone. And it's actually, things start to add up. So I'm going to dive into Manoa main campus. Most of it is fed by these two substations, two giant HECO substations. That feeds everything here that is outlined in blue. The rest of the purple stuff is like a HECO line, just like our house feeds it directly. So the blue is where most of this energy is going. So you can see the substation fed versus what's in purple. So I like to focus on the substations. It just keeps the conversation a little simpler. And out of all this blue, about 2 million kilowatt hours came from that PV system that I showed on the parking structure, and 110 was bought from HECO. So just keep that in mind. If you look at the demand that we get from HECO over this fiscal year, these are the highest usage day is here in orange. The lowest usage day is here in gray, which is weird because the lowest usage day is usually January 1st. And it's really related to temperature. I think this gray line has something to do with COVID. We'll look more into that a little bit later. But you could see as the sun peaks over the campus, the air conditioners work harder and harder and harder to combat it. And as the sun sets, that load goes away. And as the months get cooler and cooler into January, it doesn't have to, the air conditioners don't have to work as hard. So that's just something to keep in mind. Here it is again. You can see again that here's the outside air temperature from the Honolulu airport, peak temperature days, and this is our peak KW days per month. So you can see that it's just trending, it's just following the temperature. Again, it's just kind of driving that home. So Manoa, this is also a little known fact that I like to highlight everybody to, is that Manoa has 5 major cooling loops. So it's called district cooling. In the mainland, it's very common to have a district HVAC system, which provides heating and cooling. In Hawaii, it's usually like contained within the building, but at the university at Manoa, we have cooling loops. And if we had heating requirements, we'd have heating loops too. But anyway, this is little known. So when you look at buildings, you have to remember that this building is doing a lot of the cooling for all these recipient buildings. And so each one has an anchor plant, as indicated by the arrow, and it provides cooling to recipient or child buildings. I just wanted to point that out. Here's the loops and the buildings that they service. If you look at these loops again, this is how much kilowatt hours they consume. This is square footage. This is a kilowatt hours per square footage. And you can see that the top 45 buildings here 8 of them are research type buildings. We got 2 IT centers, 3 libraries, and 3 athletic venues are in this list. But if you look, it's research. So research is energy intensive. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. And student housing and campus center were omitted from this analysis because we're just focusing for this report on the facilities and the things that sort of we can affect through facilities and facility projects. This is also very interesting to me, is that month by month the amount of energy that we consume, it goes up and down based on outside temperature, but the cost also goes up and down. And you can see here that even though we use less from month to month, our bill went up from month to month because the electricity rate fluctuates on its own biorhythm. So we have 2 things going on at once. We have our our seasonal dependence on temperature, and we have our semesters and little blips like that, and then we have the HECO rate, which is completely independent of us. So you could see sometimes we use less and the bill goes up. Sometimes we use more and the bill goes down. So a lot of people were interested in what are the COVID impacts. And we can see here we have overlaid, 18, 19, 20, and 21 is still kind of low, but you could really see this rapid drop off due to COVID. And at the time the report was generated, we spent about 4.7 million less on electricity. Here's another trend. This is a year-by-year trend. So I showed you the month-by-month sort of cost and consumption independence. It is a year-by-year trend. We keep using buying less and less from the utility each year, and yet the cost of that keeps going up each year. I think due to COVID, there was a rate increase freeze, and so it started to follow our trend. But next year, I'm assuming it's going to go back up, and this is going to go back down. So 13% compared to 6%, starting from here to here. Something we've been charting and paying close attention to. We've been working with Hawai'i Energy to, process our energy efficiency rebates, and we have been charting the amount of efficiency projects we have been installing sort of organically throughout the years since 2014. Even it's chiller replacements, lighting upgrades. You can see the new white light and the old high pressure sodium light. Equipment replacements, major renovations, and in new construction. So in this 1 year alone, the amount of efficiency projects, this cumulative effect saved over $1 million this year. And we have accumulated over 7 million kilowatt hours due to just efficiency projects. So that's positive. You can also go to this link below and peruse a sort of a catalog of all these efficiency projects that contributed to each of these advancements over the years. So yeah, so the look ahead. So we have the build out of a remaining 4 megawatts at Manoa. This was the original first megawatt. We have 4 more to go. I talked about 2 more on the old parking structure in the back there that's under construction now. We have performance contracts coming up. The phase, we have the community colleges are finishing up phase 2, which Mike is going to talk about. Really exciting stuff, getting net zero at all our campuses. Manoa just awarded phase 1, so its first performance contract on the Holmes Hall loop, which is these 8 buildings down in this corner. And we are very excited to see the results of that at our campus. And if we like it, we will phase 2 and phase 3. We're also optimizing, our lead requirements to focus on energy. And we have maybe 3 new buildings that have come up under that new specification. And that's working out really good for us. we're developing a strategic energy management plan for Manoa campus, which includes a PV power plant study. You know, how much PV do we need, and where would we put it, when would we install it, as well as energy optimization modeling, and this includes the optimization of the economics, like when do you install which asset, what is the most economic path forward. And we're working with some of the brightest minds in Hawaii to do that. We also have a PV farm going up at UH West Oahu, which is here on the Mauka lands, which were underutilized lands that we're now utilizing. And we have the HECO Green Tariff that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, that we're working on. It's now in its PUC proceedings in the docket, and we'll see how that comes out. And we have like ongoing efficiency projects that we're doing with all the RIM funding. Every time we go and we replace a chiller, or we swap out lights or remodel a space, we are putting efficiency in, reviewing it, making sure that it qualifies for Hawaii energy rebates, and then adding that to our catalog and our tracking of that.
Miles, for the benefit of all the members and other people who are watching, can you just explain a little more about the Green Tariff and the RIM and what that stands for and what it is?
The Green Tariff?
Yeah. Green Tariff
sure.
And the RAM.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So the Green Tariff is a program that that HECO is excited to do with UH. So as you know, Manoa is it's really dense. It's like a mini city. We have all these high-rise buildings. I'm gonna kind of go off on a tangent here, but this is sort of, I used to work in solar too, and this is sort of my rule of thumb, is 1-story house, 1 roof plane to power that house, right? 2-story house, 2 roof plane. 5-story building, you need a lot of roof plane. So when you have all these high rises, you can only put so much solar on the roof, and the other floors, you can't power the whole building that way. So you kind of need to build it somewhere else. And so if you had a lot of land, you could put it, on the ground on your property, kind of like what Maui has done. If you had huge parking structures, you can put it on the parking structure like Manoa has done. But at Manoa, even if you cover all the parking structures and all the parking lots and all the green spaces and everything, it's so dense, and there's so much, it's so energy intensive because of research activity and everything else that goes on there, which is good stuff. You need to sort of locate that solar offsite. Well, the only way to power the campus with a system offsite, you have to get the power to your campus. The only way to do that is through the HECO wires. There is no HECO program that, and that's called wheeling. And there's no, HECO doesn't have a wheeling tariff or whatever. So they are working with us to try to do what they're calling a green tariff, which allows UH to sort of build a PV farm on a offsite, with a UH owned offsite, and transmit that energy to Manoa using HECO wires. So that's basically the high level view of what the green tariff is. It allows UH to generate power on an offsite, green power on an offsite, and transmit it using HECO wires to the place that it needs it. That's available. I think it's in phase 1. They're planning a phase 2. Phase 1 is limited to Oahu, and so we can build this farm and we can use it at any UH facility. So we're doing our calculations and seeing which facilities get the most benefit for the system. So that's the green tariff. And then the RIM is Renew, Improve, and Modernize. It used to be called CRDM, which is Continual Renewal and Deferred Maintenance. This is basically the budget that fixes. So everything breaks, like your roof, you got to re-roof it. Your refrigerator, you got to replace it. you saw those cooling loops. They have these huge chillers. Chillers are one chiller. I don't know if you've ever been in a chiller room. I never had before, but they're the size of a locomotive, and there's 2 of them at anchor plants, and each building has like an emergency chiller because the building cannot warm up or else the research goes bad. So we have like, secondary and emergency systems in place. So, but these things break and you have to maintain them. There's piping, there's valves, there's pumps, there's all sorts of machinery. And so the RIM budget is what is approved by the ledge every, and the governor ultimately every year to go and maintain those items. So that's how we get the work done. This is separate and apart from like new building construction. So, we build a new building and then we have to maintain that new building, and then there's not enough money to maintain it, so that things start to break in the long, and you have to replace it. And that's what the RIM budget does. But we, when we replace it, we don't just replace it like, we replace it better. And it takes some engineering to make sure that it's not only efficient, but it's also operationally, I guess, resilient. So here's the trade-off. Like a lot of the most efficient chillers and air conditioners and things like that also require the most maintenance, kind of like a hot rod or a Formula One racer. The more inefficient equipment that you buy is really rock solid. It's been running for years. So we get the compromise. We get try to get the one in the middle, and we have to really be careful with our engineering, and we have a really good engineering staff that helps determine all of that. So that's what I mean by ongoing efficiency via RIM. That help? Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm
thank you.
okay. Yeah, sure. So if there are any questions on Manoa or on the system, if not, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who's going to wow you with some fantastic progress happening at the community colleges.
I think we're going to try to do questions at the end of all the presentations. So.
Okay, Mike, you want me to drive, or did you want to share? Did you want to share your own screen or take over the screen?
If you don't mind driving, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to mute off.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mike Navasami. I am the Associate Vice President for Administrative Affairs for the University of Hawaii Community Colleges. What you see here is an overview of Leeward Community College with what we've done with solar over the parking lots and over the buildings. And this is the first campus that we hope will be net zero. We are still gathering data to confirm that, but this is what a campus would look like if you had the funds and the space to do a lot of renewable energy. And this is what we've done at Leeward. Next, please. We started all of this performance contracting and renewables back in 2010. And we've had a lot of success. And this slide basically shows you what we have been trying to do with our campuses. It is a little outdated because not only Maui, but we're hoping that Leeward with our renewables will also be at 100% net zero. With Honolulu, we've had a bit of a struggle with the PV systems because where we had initially intended to place them over the parking lot, which is over the old incinerator site, for those of you who are old enough to remember that there was an old incinerator site alongside Kapalama Canal. And because of the hazmat issues that we've had there and having to dig into the ground more than 6 feet, that was fixed for that purpose. We had to change our plans, and we are in the process now of doing rooftop along with batteries, but it will not be as effective, I think, as what we had initially planned. Kapiolani is at 70, will be at 74% once we get that going. It is in a special design district, so there are limitations in terms of what we can do there. Windward, it's on the windward side, so you would need more panels because of the lack of the strength in the sunlight. But based on what we've done, we are looking at taking it to 70% renewable. Next, please. So back in 2010, we started looking at performance contracts. And the reason we did this is because our strategy was to do whatever we could to reduce our consumption and our dependence on HECO for energy. So we started with a performance contract on the Oahu campuses and Maui with JCI and Kauai with Chevron Energy Solutions at the time. And we reduced our energy consumption to the extent that we felt we could in phase one. After we did that, we decided that we would move on to phase two, which was to do additional performance contracting to reduce energy and tie that in now to solar and storage for the balance to get to net zero. These measures included smart controls, LED lighting, HVAC enhancements, different things that we would do on campus to reduce consumption. And in doing so, we also reduced our deferred maintenance by over $20 million because of the things that we were doing that impacted on things like HVAC replacements and the like that we would have had to spend monies on if not for this, this project. Next, please. Oh, before we go there, one of the things that we did and incorporated into our contract was this hands-on learning. Normally, we would do simply a construction contract for something like this, but we came up with this idea because we're a community college and because we offer classes in these areas with renewable sustainability classes and things like that. We wanted to partner with, and in this case, with Johnson Controls, and they have been working with us in providing classes for students, for faculty. And so it's a partnership in that regard that goes beyond just the construction contract that we have with them. Thank you, Miles. Next. So for the community college campuses, this is what we did starting in 2012 and contracting with them. In 2015, we did a little bit more. And in 19, we did a lot. And as you can see, in 2021, I'll get into grid services in a little bit later that will also bring more funds back to the community colleges. Next. So for the Oahu campuses, after we did our phase one energy efficiency, we had basically 18.7 million kilowatt hours left to tend to. And that was a baseline that we started with. And we said we're going to reduce through additional efficiency measures 26% of that, or 13.9 million kilowatt hours. And then the difference of 10 million kilowatt hours, which accounts for approximately 58%, we were going to do with renewables. So that's what we did. And that leaves about 3 million kilowatt hours that we still have a challenge with in terms of taking all of our campuses to net zero. Next. Just pointing out Leeward because Leeward is the first campus that we feel, and it could be nationwide, not just the state of Hawaii, that takes a community college campus or any campus to net zero with all of the generation of energy on our campus. Other campuses on the mainland have sites off campus that generates energy for them. But here everything is generated on the Leeward campus. As you can see, the system produces 1.67 megawatts of power. That's DC current with 3,570 panels and storage capacity of 2.3 million watts in battery storage. And this has been in existence now for a year. We did have some issues with the battery storage, so we don't have real good information as yet, and we're still compiling the information to see where we are going forward with the net zero status. Next, please. Maui, many of you have seen a lot of press regarding Maui because we thought we would be taking Maui as the first campus to be net zero. But because of different kinds of issues, permitting, construction, etc., Leeward actually beat out Maui in terms of being the first. But we have now taken Maui to net zero. And again, with the information that we're gathering, we're hoping that in the future we can show that we are in fact net zero. What I'm hoping is the day where, and this is supposed to happen, where we don't get bills from MECO and HECO for Leeward and for Maui. And that we would be producing and storing and using battery storage overnight and during peak hours to also address demand charges as well. Next, please. This is the information regarding Maui College. After phase one, we had a baseline of 3.5 kilowatt hours. After the phase two efficiency measures, we brought that down to 2.4. And then with the PV and batteries, we basically took it to net zero. And, you know, I asked the same question that you might have. Why is it, you know, like 98% or there's a 2% safety factor? Well, the money that you spend to actually take it to net zero kind of dissipates into thin air if you don't use the energy, but you're paying the PPA provider for that. So it's a little bit conservative, but we're hoping that for both Leeward and for Maui, we will be at net zero. Next, please. This is the PV array that we have in place at Maui College. It is on the campus, on the Mauka side of the campus. We also have parking canopies on the campus as well that was done as part of phase one. And here we have 3,360 PV modules with battery storage of 2.3 megawatts of power. Next, please. I mentioned grid services. We have entered into a contract with OATI, who has a contract with HECO, basically, to utilize our batteries when HECO needs energy so that they don't have to strut up another generator or, you know, do their own generation. And they can tap into our batteries as long as it does not interfere with our position of being net zero. And this is something that we're hoping will generate additional income for the community colleges. Next. So over the 5-year contract, we're looking at over $5 million coming to the community colleges for the use of the batteries that we have available on all of our campuses. Now, please understand that all of this money doesn't come to us. 45% of whatever is generated needs to go back to and is applied to the battery service contracts and augmentation for the batteries. Next. This gives you a pretty good summary of the annual solar PV generation, which is that first line, and then the energy storage capacity at each of our campuses. and where we are with, what's been contracted, what's operating, and what we're waiting for to come online, like Honolulu and Kapiolani. We've been fortunate at Kauai. We got legislative support of $2.5 million to install a PV farm, so to speak, on the campus. And I understand that's going to be operational within the next several months. I still need to fly over and see, what that looks like. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I haven't been traveling to the neighbor islands to see the progress that we made at not only for PV, but for all of the other repairs and maintenance kinds of contracts that the legislature has funded. So we're hoping to do that and see the results of the PV farm that we have there. And that one, for that, it's not a PPA since it's all funded. And the way that we operate the entire community college system will benefit from that savings. Next. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you so much. I think we're gonna go ahead to DOE now. And everyone make a note of your questions. We'll get to questions after we hear from DOE. We'll get to questions for everybody. And thank you very much for the presentation. And Randy, it's passing it over to you.
Good morning, all. Chair Lowen, Chair Woodson, and Chair Takayama, thank you very much for your time this morning. I am going to defer to Ricky Fujitani, who is our Aux Service Director, and this area of is under his jurisdiction and work. So Ricky.
Okay, thanks, Randy. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, first of all, I want to actually thank the University of Hawaii, specifically Miles Topping. The DOE initiatives related to this had been quite recent, and we've worked a lot with Miles, primarily because of his incredible expertise in the area, and he has been incredibly helpful in sharing contracts, strategies, ideas, all kinds of stuff with the Department of Education. So the University of Hawaii has been incredibly helpful for the Department of Ed. What you're seeing here is our monitoring system. So the DOE is very different than the University of Hawaii or the larger sites like the military, because everything is distributed into literally, 273 instances. And in each of these campuses or schools, the person working all this is usually the head custodian. So the amount of expertise and resources we have is incredibly distributed and spread out. So our strategy has been, first of all, systems in place. And so what you're looking at is the actual monitoring system for the entire Department of Ed. It's basically all the schools' meters, things that we want to e-gauge, the net energy metering, large systems, and we have one microgrid at the Queen Liliuokalani campus. And it all home runs to this dashboard. And this is a real-time dashboard. So the data is updated literally every 15 minutes. And as you can see at this moment in time, in our energy usage for this month, 72% of our energy, 1.9 million kilowatts, was from the utilities, and 28% of our usage was solar. And it shows you who our top producers in solar are, who our top consumers in electricity are. And as of this morning at 10:45, 10% of our load is solar now. So as the sun comes up and we start generating, the balance changes. So this system, because we are such a distributed, we need systems to aggregate all of this, shows exactly what's going on. You can drill down then.
Can I ask a clarifying question? When you say renewable, do you mean self-generated? Because obviously some part of utility energy is also renewable energy. So is that number?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So this is just ours. It's self-generation. Yeah. Yeah. And then you can drill down to every site to see what the real-time information is by campus. And then you can even drill down even further to actual devices. So we monitor specific inverters, specific e-gauges, specific site meters. So this is our system, our control point, really from a monitoring standpoint. On the public side, if you go to our facilities portal, which is hawaiidoefacilities.org, we organize all the information and systems by these, I guess, 4 swim lanes. The first one being facilities. That's the left. That's all the facilities projects. So with this, you can track all the CI projects, all the information. You can even look at deferred maintenance service calls by school. Then in the next column is initiatives, like our PPE tracking, school directed AC. We actually have an Amazon cart for legislators to estimate historical costs for CIP line items. And then the 4th initiative, which is recent, is survey assessment data of school deferred maintenance high fit. But the one I want to focus on is the sustainability column. The first one is an energy dashboard. So what we do is we take that Mana monitoring data and we repackage it for schools. So you can look at, in this case, Hui Manu. You can see the solar profile, what their actual charge was. Last month, the demand charge was 228. Their energy charge was negative because solar was taking most of the load. And you can see actually the energy mix by hour over time. So that's a school that has solar. Here's one that doesn't, Aliamanu, and you can see it's a drastically different. The energy charge is $3,400 for the last month with a demand charge of $776. So that's our energy dashboard by school. We also have a real-time example of our microgrid. So this is the operating microgrid we have at Queen Liliuokalani, which is our only good office building load. So this one makes sense, right? Because we occupy it basically every day of the year, except for the weekends. And it real time shows you the load, the battery, what's being produced. The next tile, and it's more aggregate and reporting, is overall school electricity consumption by month. So what this is just showing you an aggregate by quarter and by month, basically all the bills, both grid costs, on-site generation by school. And this is all downloadable for schools or anyone who wants to use it. Our consultants use it a lot on the energy side. And then we have a similar system for renewable. And again, you can see the mix of consumption, cost, data, which is all downloadable. So our strategy has been self-service because, like I said, we're so distributed in our, based upon 263 schools. That's the systems I wanted to show. And then we also have just a short presentation to summarize overall what our initiatives are. And this is kind of like our summary page. Again, we got started with Act 176, Sustainable Schools, and the statutory benchmark by law was the 2016 year, and that's in red. So at that time, our consumption was 146 million kilowatts, and our power was 4.9%. As of 2021, we'll have the data soon, but for 2020, consumption is now 127 kilowatt hours million, or 13% reduction, and solar is now at 18.5%. So that's a snapshot of the DOE. We have basically 4 major initiatives. The first one is on efficiency from LED, and that's been completed. What that is we took the cheapest, most cost-effective way to fix this or reduce efficiency was we literally ordered 700,000 light bulbs, TH, and we paid our maintenance crew overtime to install it. And that resulted in a 15 million kilowatt per year savings. If the ballast broke, we replaced the ballast. If not, we didn't bother with anything. The next thing was energy efficiency, AC replacements, and that's significant. Our footprint is large on old AC. So we've replaced what we could. And so far that's a 7 million kilowatt savings. The third initiative is renewable, and being a distributed, this one is the most difficult because of the DOE just doesn't have scale and size for solar, and the cost for solar is actually incredibly cost prohibitive given our load, because most of the times people aren't in school. So you're buying for capacity for 45% of the time you're there. So we've completed only 128 projects using the net energy metering program. And fourth is consumption to reduce consumption. And again, because we're distributed, everything's run by custodians, we need to build systems now to control energy usage. And that's going to be quite a challenge. So that's the DOE's initiative in a snapshot. This is the typical load of a high school. It's 54% lighting and 20% air conditioning. So all our efforts have to focus on these two biggest consumers of electricity. Again, the biggest thing was energy light bulbs. So that's been done. The second thing is AC replacements. And these are pictures of our operating ACs at DOE schools. The stuff is still working, but it has to be replaced. The scale of what has to replace is a little daunting. At least it's daunting for me. There's about 188 million in AC that needs to be replaced that are over 20 years old right now. So the scale is quite daunting. This is the concept for the DOE in terms of getting to net zero, right? We tried our best to reduce the load and through LEDs and retrofits, and at the same time we try to build renewable energy, and hopefully someday it'll meet. But like I said, the most challenging part will be the renewable side. You know, as we reduce load, we open more schools, we open more buildings, so the load constantly grows. And until we actually start closing schools and consolidating our footprint, it's going to be way too challenging. I mean, we have to actually close schools as we build new ones as the demographics change. So like the University of Hawaii, right, we're showing a significant consumption trend reduction, and 2021 is skewed because of COVID, but because of energy prices, bills are actually going up because of the fuel charge and the demand charge. So it's incredibly difficult despite reducing the actual load of schools. What's really been interesting is what the effect of consumption has been during COVID. So this chart shows you what the base case was. Green is the effect of COVID being shut down because schools were remote. And red would be if we were able to shut down the AC. But like I said, because things are run by custodians on timers, it's hard. We could have really reduced costs if we had centralized systems. And unfortunately, that didn't happen, but it did allow us to catch up in our deficit of spending for paying the utility bill as a result of COVID. Next year, as we open up again, that bill is going to spike and increase again, and it'll be difficult paying our utility bill. Next big projects for us are external LED fixtures. Again, that's the next biggest return for the Department of Ed. Renewables, this is the most challenging because without net energy metering, the scale and size of a typical DOE school does not make sense for solar. And here's a good example. So here is if we were to do things by solar for a typical high school, we will pay more using solar than if we did buy from the utility, from HECO, because our load is just not based on that. And then the cost of storage is too cost prohibitive. This is your typical profile for a high school. This is the one for the middle school. It's even worse because the load overall of a middle school is lower. And again, the worst profile is for an elementary school. So unlike the university, which has scale and size, where you can build these big solar farms, that's not an option for the DOE. So the better strategy for us is a time of use schedule, right? The DOE is the best load to grab power that's oversaturated during the grid during the day, but we need a time of use schedule that allows that. And HECO is unfortunately not set up for that. Our meters are still visually read. So you need new meters, you need a new rate schedule. It doesn't make sense for the DOE to produce solar at a way more expensive rate. It's better for us to buy solar from HECO, who has scales of megawatt plants and needs to actually bleed energy off the grid during the day when sun generation is so high. That's a complicated process with the PUC that we approach them all the time and try to get that on a docket. But that's really the better strategy on the renewable side. And then for us, the most important thing is controlling consumption. And again, because of our lack of systems and controls, it's difficult. So we're moving towards, when we put in new AC systems, we try to base it on the backneck standard so we can centrally control and turn it off. And then for rooms, we're putting in occupancy sensors. So when teachers leave, they don't forget to turn off the AC, it automatically shuts down. So that's pretty much what's been going on at the Department of Ed. Again, most of our efforts have been on efficiency, especially due to Act 57, which was the HGIA GEMS bill. So because of that, we've been able to do most of our initiatives on our own, but paying back the Hawaii Green Energy Infrastructure Authority with the use of that money. So that's pretty much for the DOE side.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I guess now we'll go to questions. I have a bunch, but I'm gonna first see if any of the members have questions. Any members of EEP committee have questions? And hang on, trying to see if anyone online. All right, if not, any members of the committee? Brett Capella, go ahead. I have a question for the DOE.
Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. This is actually in regard to, you spoke a lot about AC. So this is actually in regard to House Bill 613 that was vetoed earlier by the governor. And then we didn't do the veto override. So a lot of that money is now flexible spending for the DOE. Part of House Bill 613 was meant to ensure that air conditioning was installed in all classrooms. I'm now seeing that still needed cooling, but I'm now seeing that there are a lot of classrooms that AC needs to be updated and upgraded. Does the department plan on using any of that federal funding that it now has available to finish the installing of AC and clean energy upgrades to ensure that the DOE's energy use remains neutral, at least in new cooling systems that are being installed?
Rep Capella, thank you very much. This is Randy.
Go ahead, Randy.
There's two. One, the bill now will the money will move over, given the whatever the constraints are from using that ESSER's money, and that's an evaluation that our budget and finance folks have taken a look at what will be allowable based upon the needs. The challenge we have with more AC installations is not only installing units, but as you can imagine, energy demand. And it's not just, we have infrastructure that is rather old, and to put units in there that with the kinds of energy demands and electrical demands that we will have is something that has to be looked at holistically. For example, Kalaniana Ole School out in Hilo, Mauka of Hilo, which is just out there because now with air purifiers and more fans to circulate rooms, plus the demands for the laptops have overstressed, and with us daisy chaining splitters causes the breakers to shut down. So we got to dislodge all of that and re-kick the breaker. So we will look at all the available funds, and as our BNF slices up, we're on the list for AC units being installed, considering energy use and electrical upgrades. So we'll get back to you on what that'll look like. Thank you.
I can go more specific on that. So a few years ago, the DOE launched a major initiative called School Directed AC. And what we did was we tried to find more appropriate technology for schools to cool classrooms. And it's a 3-step process. The first step was to reduce the load at the classroom, because that's where the AC has to go. And so that was reduced significantly with the T8 LED bulbs. The next step is to determine what the available capacity is now available at the classroom to actually cool it. And that process was started. So during that time, we've done since then about 682 electrical assessments at the classroom, with another 247 to go. And what we found is, based on that, we have enough capacity to add literally 4,000 more classrooms to get cooled with window ACs. So the next step would be, if we were able to get funds based upon the ESSER funds, we could install simple energy efficient window ACs in these classrooms now, because we know where the load is available, and this is our projected cost. So we feel that we could cool an additional 4,000 classrooms for a $38 million cost with this kind of simple basic technology. If we were to go to the split AC system, that cost would be literally $300 million. If we went to the package AC system, it would be $600 million. Those other systems are more complex, more efficient, but not practical from a capital resource standpoint. However, in order to do that cost, we're going to need another $8 million a year to pay that electricity bill. There is no free lunch, right? We have to, you want to cool classrooms or you want to pay for electricity. There's no way around it. So the DOE has started this initiative. It's actually working, but we need funds to complete it. But like A.S. Tanaka said, it's dependent upon how our fiscal office decides to spend all those funds. And there's tons of other needs too. It's going to be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
But we are advocating our best in order to use these funds to cool classrooms.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thanks. Rep. Woodson, then,
I'll defer to Representative Yanadin.
and then Rep. Takayama.
Morning. For the University of Hawaii.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I apologize. I don't know all the terms. I'm new to the developing technology in solar and other forms of green energy. But I'm just wondering, I've been about the university's capacity to upgrade as technology in batteries improves and batteries and storage improves. What will be kind of the outlay in that? I was also reading a recent federal decision by the FERC, which kind of overrides some of various states' abilities to articulate specific rules as to how we can purchase wholesale batteries. So this kind of been the stopping the plug for renewable energy for a lot of large-scale operations. So as those technologies improve, can the university upgrade its systems with them?
I'll take that question. Absolutely. I mean, we are constantly monitoring the market, and we have our consultants, and we've also engaged the UH Economic Research Organization to help us, develop the least cost plan forward to net zero. Like I said, which assets to put in. Do you do an efficiency project first, or a solar project, or is it a battery? Which one do you do first? And so we're constantly, monitoring the new dockets that come out, the new tariffs that come out, the new pricing that come out, constantly taking calls from vendors. And yes, absolutely, dude. If there's an opportunity, we're gonna jump on it. But I tell you, most of it is like Ricky was kind of saying, is funding. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just slam a PV system on an old roof. You need to redo the roof first, right? So that's $1 million before you can even start the PV project. And then you may need to upgrade the electrical, of the building or whatever. Kind of like at your house, right? You wouldn't slam up a PV system unless you first redid your roof. In fact, the PV vendors will tell you that you should redo the roof first. So there's that, and then there's the weird thing is we're hedging against the utility always. I don't think we'd even have a conversation if it wasn't for our high energy cost. I tell everybody, I could go 100% renewable and pay twice as much for my electricity, but then I'd be shot and I'd lose my job, and that's not what anybody wants to do. Yeah, we want to be renewable, we want to stop global warming, we want to do all that, but we also want to pay less because our rates are so high. We don't want to pay more. UH pays over 30 million, notionally $30 million a year in electricity bills. We're, and like I showed, and like Ricky showed, the more we do, the more it goes up. So this is one little known thing about the utility is they are a necessary monopoly. We, the community, depend on them. Our sewer system depends on them. Our roadways, everything, right? If the electricity shuts off, life as we know it stops. So we need them to stay solvent, and they have these mechanisms that allow them to adjust their rates so that they remain healthy as a company, because they're a private company. And a lot of the collection that they do is based on volumetric. So based on kilowatt hour sales. So if they sell less, let's say half the people stop buying electricity because they have solar or whatever, then they have to increase their rates to make up for that loss in revenue. So that's kind of this thing, this so we really need to partner with the utility in things like time of use, like Ricky was alluding to, or things like the Green Tariff allow us to generate and pay for the wires, and so that we can all approach 100% renewable for the state and the world.
All right, thank you. There's a question, I think, Chair Woodson, and then Chair Takayama, and then I have a bunch of questions. So we do have still quite a bit to get through. So if we can keep the responses cogent to the question and as only as expansive as necessary, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll defer to Chair Takayama.
Thank you, Chair Woodson. Couple questions for UH. Mr. Topping, one of your slides showed the COVID impact on electrical usage, and it said that you achieved a savings of about $4.7 million during the 1 year or so that COVID shut down our university campuses. That's a significant amount, but given that the total UH usage is about 47 million, that's only about 10% savings. I'm surprised it's so little, actually, because we were essentially shutting down all of our in-person instruction at all of our campuses, and dorms were basically empty. Why was the savings not greater than what it was?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and this goes back to another one of those little known facts is that most of the energy at Manoa, most of the energy is consumed at Manoa campus, right? The 45 million, most of it's at Manoa campus, and most of the energy at Manoa campus is in research buildings, which you cannot shut off. Those did not stop. Research went on. The labs had to stay environmentally controlled in terms of temperature and humidity. A lot of the savings that you saw was facilities taking advantage of nobody on campus. We can shut this machine down, do our repairs, and then bring it up as needed. But those research buildings had to stay on, and it's not, there's nothing wrong with research. It's good. It's good that we have research. It's good that we have an R1 research university in Hawaii. It attracts students. It attracts everything. But it's just energy intensive, and that's all there is to it. Luckily, we don't have to heat. If we had to heat, it would be even more. If in the mainland the prices are so low, it's like whatever. But here it's so high, it catches our eye, right? Because we're funding it. So
Thank you.
yeah.
My second question deals with the idea of energy savings performance contracts. So we heard from Michael Navasami that community colleges started these contracts in 2010 and has led to substantial savings, as we heard at Leeward Community College and Maui College, 100% net zero. So my question is, since Manoa, you said, just signed a contract in April of this year, why did it take 10, 11 years for Manoa to get onto that notion of energy savings contracts?
That's a good question. That is before my time. It took, since I started about a little over 4 years ago, to get this thing going. So I don't know why they didn't pursue it before. There is a lot of nuances, especially at the Manoa campus with the research buildings, that concern facilities that if you're not careful, you may save energy. I mean, if you shut off all the buildings, hey, you save energy, right? But then you also lose your research, you lose your accreditation, and you lose all this stuff. So that's what my assumption is. I don't actually have a good answer on why we didn't do it, but we are doing it now.
Okay, well, that leads me to my last question, and that is pertaining to UH Manoa. How likely is it that the Manoa campus will reach a net zero goal in 14 years?
That is a really good question. The Manoa, so yeah, we will not be able to achieve with today's technology 100% renewable through PV and batteries at the Manoa campus. There is just not enough space. So on-site generation with storage, we can maybe get to 40% or 50%. We just did a PV power plant study, and that's, I mean, it's I won't even show it to you because it's never going to get built like this, and it will take 20 years to build it out like this, even if it did, but it's everywhere. I don't know if you've seen the state of Hawaii Department of Energy's Haven simulation, which shows what it would take to go 100% renewable using solar and wind on Oahu. But it's everywhere. I mean, it's people on the west side are up in arms because all these solar farms are in their backyard. Why not put it in Kahala? We don't. Well, the answer is simple. There's no real open real estate in Kahala. Two, if you did, the price would be astronomical. If you put it on the ridge lines and everything. So, sorry, going off on a tangent, but yeah, we're going to have to partner with the utility and do offsites and other things like this Mauka PV project in order to hit the net zero mandate. There are other things that we are looking at, like maybe cogen or things like that. We are studying it. We're moving cautiously on it. If it can bring economic, environmental, and some form of resilience to the campus, so that if in case there's a catastrophic event, our critical buildings can stay on. That's something we're considering, and we're applying sort of economic weight to all of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Questions for Department of Education first, starting off. Thank you again for being here. If I can first just ask a very basic question to dovetail off of what Vice Chair Kakala was asking. How many classrooms currently still need AC. You had referenced that with $38 million that you're able to AC 4,000 classrooms. How many classrooms in the aggregate still do not have ACs within the system?
Go ahead, Ricky.
So just, yeah, so Justin, can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Yeah, so at this time, we estimate that 6,000 classrooms have AC, and there are about 5,000 without it. And these are the three scenarios on how to cool those classrooms. This assumes though there's enough power in order to cool it, and that's a big assumption. Like Randy was telling me, every other day he goes to a school where power is constrained. We do know, like I was speaking earlier, that we have done literally 682 building electrical assessments, with another 250 we're going to complete when the kids come back in school. We know where we can put AC now because we've done that analysis. So we comfortably feel if given $32 million, we could probably cool another 4,000 classrooms now that have adequate power to put AC. But the bottom line cost is going to be an increased electricity bill of about $8 million a year.
Okay, so extrapolating out from that, the cost to AC 5,000 classrooms would be approximately $43 million based upon your scenario that you offered earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Per the LED light, how many classrooms or LED, how many light bulbs are not replaced with the LED technology as of yet, in terms of a percentage?
So, yeah, 100% internal, because as you know, the typical DOE classroom is a T8 light fixture. It hasn't changed since I was going to college school, and we just replaced those T8s with an energy efficient one. So that's all completed. What's left is all the external lights, which are all fixture based, and you can't just replace the bulb. So that's going to be a major initiative now, to replace external lighting. And that's a more complicated one because you can't just replace the bulb, right? You got to replace the entire fixture, and that's more costly.
Okay, thank you for that. And so just to make the point, I would argue that with ESSER 2.3 and ARP funds, that there is more than enough money to go ahead and AC all the remaining classrooms at the DOE, as long as we stay within the constructs of the guidance provided by the U.S. Department of Education, which means that you would just only have to add some sort of HEPA filter on to those ACs to fulfill that requirement. Do you have any idea as to the cost of what it would take with to incorporate AC with HEPA filters?
The strategy that the DOE is taking is a very simplistic one, is we just put a HEPA filter in the room, which is way more cost effective. So that's the base strategy. Also, with the typical classroom, everything is louvered. So to increase fresh air, all you do is open a louver, and that's way more effective than anything else.
What is the unit cost of a HEPA filter to add that? Plus the cost.
I think it's maybe like $300-400. Yeah.
Per filter.
Yeah. So
per filter unit. Yeah. Yep.
So Rep Woodson,
go ahead, Randy.
As you know, we've got a diverse type of AC units. Some are split, some are window, and so we're finding working with systems that can make that accommodation. Of the 12,000 rooms that we have identified 1,300 that are what we would call closed systems. We don't have louvers. So we have systems now to really monitor the level of CO2, which determines what the circulation is. So we're focused on 1,300 rooms. The challenge we have is when the room is hot and we're trying to move air in these rooms that have louvers, we are encouraging them to make a choice between opening the louvers and not running the AC. The other thing we've learned that in the AC units that are split or they cool the source, 20% of the air is external air when it comes through the AC system. So we are getting fresh air, but we have distributed about 800 monitoring devices to one, identify what the air composition is, because at a certain level below 1,000 parts per units, we can satisfy the safety requirements that CDC and Department of Health. So we take those out of the equation. We're focused on 1,300 rooms. We have air purifiers in the rooms and promoting that circulation if we bump above that level. And then these air purifiers have filter systems that help keep the air clean as possible. So those, as Ricky frames it, the economics, we're trying to be sensitive to the cost of these things and keep working through it. We know the technology is going to change, but we're relatively comfortable with the rooms and working on the 1,300 that need help.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope there's some serious consideration given to ACing our schools. Now I'd like to backfill back into the original conversation. Mr. Fujitani, you had indicated that per the DOE system, that it's not cost efficient for you to concentrate on incorporating photovoltaic systems on your buildings, because it's more cost beneficial to either aggregate that energy source from some offsite location or to continue to rely on traditional energy sources. Can you expand upon what you mean?
Right. If, like Miles was saying earlier, we could go 100% net zero energy, but the cost to do that would be probably twice as much as if you bought a vehicle. Right now, we can't even pay our energy bill every year. So we have to do it only when it makes economic sense. So that's what we've done. So we've done 128 installations. It makes economic sense because of net energy metering, which means HECO becomes the battery for these. But since the close of the net energy metering system, the school load makes no sense. We are not in school more than half the time we're there, and you're buying that capacity. So here's the example. On a typical high school, you'll be paying more if you want to use it all with batteries and solar power. We just don't have the scale. There are ways around this. If you could do green tariffs, you could aggregate, or you could do all these other things, but that's a huge regulatory process and means to get anything going. So for us, going forward, since net energy metering doesn't work, the best use is a time of use schedule. Because right now the grid is oversaturated during the time school is in session. You actually have to curtail generation at your home or all these systems. We should be buying all that power, renewable power that's on the grid right now, but that requires a time of use schedule and a time of use meter, which doesn't exist at all these schools. Our meters are still visually read.
So what I think what we need to do for you guys, Rep. Woodson, is
because we're going off of we're limited on time.
Yeah, sorry.
I have another couple of questions.
Well, can I jump in on this because I have some questions on this?
Okay, defer to you.
Okay. So on the you're saying the only option that you see is net energy metering or time of use, which obviously doesn't exist. So you're talking about a time of use program that would be something DOE could use, but that would be like system-wide offered to regular ratepayers as well, I assume. So, I mean, that's complicated for a lot of reasons, obviously. I mean, I just look at what's happening at UH community colleges, where I would guess the usage profile and the size of some of these campuses is not so different from like, say, some of our bigger high schools. And so we see them looking at more other financing options, including ESCOs, but also, you know, grid services, PPAs, and investing in other kinds of systems that they're actually seeing as a money maker for the system. So why is it look like we're hearing? It feels like we're hearing about two totally different realities from what you're saying here. versus what we're hearing from Miles about some of the community colleges programs.
So Rep.
Yeah,
Capella,
it's a big difference. Yeah.
You're exactly right. It's two different realities because of scale. So I think, and being considerate of your time, what we probably need to do is bundle the information as we know it at this point in time, come back to you or provide a report to you that says, these are the things that are important, or what we think could be the game changer. And part of it is the multitude of things that Ricky has suggested. So, I'm not sure we can answer you right now, but we'll work on something that we can give you. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure. I agree that it's totally two different realities. Can we actually stop the screen share for now? It's hard to tell who's speaking.
Yeah.
And then Rep. Woodson, sorry, I jumped in there. He had another question, and then I'll ask the rest of mine.
All right, thank you. Also, just to carry on the conversation, to tie everything together, when we're talking about particularly the DOE and what types of strategies or options you folks are utilizing to get to your renewable energy goals, and including the discussion about AC. Has there been any serious discussion or thought processes around utilizing or over leveraging closed circuitry system AC units that are attached to some sort of photovoltaic, that's attached to some sort of battery technology, and then you can also affix that to the grid? That there and by will, I think, resolve a lot of these issues that you have brought up. And simultaneously, you're going to reduce your energy costs and your energy consumption. And those are strategies that you can utilize that are very cost effective because it does incorporate that use of those window units and also split ACs. But this is something that is very doable. I'm wondering as to why there hasn't been more thought given into that, particularly because you're indicating that it's primarily cost prohibitive for you to rely solely on renewable energy sources that are derived from on-site sources.
Thank you, Chair. We have started this process of looking back. So when we had battery installations, and the example I would use is Maui, Waiena, we're finding that the battery failures, we've had a number of control systems. So some of these look backs bring us to a place of feeding the grid and drawing back down from the grid. So all these additional costs in battery storage, control problems, failures in the system are all bringing to this place where we're going to recommend window units. Now, some of the CIP money can't be used for that unless the life is over 10 years. We have seen through the window units we have, some of them are 12, 15 years old and are still in good operating condition. We have to maintain it properly and all the things that extends its life. But yes, we have taken a look back and saying maybe batteries is not the place to go, because a battery unit, the last quote we got was going to cost us $40,000 to replace that battery unit. And what does it bring to the game? Like Ricky has said, we're taking energy when it's less used from a generation standpoint. So we gotta step back and say this is the recommendation we're going to make, as opposed to using batteries. We'll draw down from the grid. So yes, we are taking all that into consideration.
All right, thank you, Asanaka. I just hope that because we do have an opportunity, I believe, with these federal funds to really make significant progress in some of our goals that we have relating to cooling our schools, which is well overdue, to getting to our renewable energy goals, all utilizing or over leveraging these resources that we traditionally don't have available to us, especially and particularly for these one-time costs, upfront costs that are needed to install this type of technology. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask a few questions since we're an hour and a half in now. I guess continuing to talk about AC for a minute, as DOE has been doing more of this classroom by classroom window unit approach, what actions are you taking to make sure the ACs that are being purchased are energy efficient? And how do you monitor the usage on those, make sure they're not being left on when the classroom's not occupied, et cetera?
Ricky?
Yeah, so we're following everything from Hawaii Energy Guide. Our standard unit is recommended as actually the most efficient window AC out there. It's made by LG. It's a dual inverter technology, so it has the same efficiencies as a split unit, but in a window unit. It's actually a game changer in terms of AC technology. So that's our standard unit that we recommend.
When a teacher or a principal on a certain campus uses their discretionary funds to go this route, is there a follow-up to make sure they are purchasing something that's in the recommended guidelines?
Right. So in our Hawaii Facilities DOE dashboard, there's a school directed AC link, which schools have to then upload all the information of installed data. So that's public. I'll send that link to all of you here, and it's they're responsible for updating all the current inventory that's been installed by schools based upon our recommended guidelines.
So are all the new ACs installed since you issued the guidance for efficiency, they all fall into that?
Oh, absolutely. The better one though is the LG, and that's supply constraint. So if that's not available, the next best option is the Friedrich, which is the most durable, longest lasting, based on our experience, window ACs, then we recommend that unit. But the game changer is the dual inverter LG, which will be followed by a lot of other manufacturers soon, but they haven't been able to copy their technology yet.
Mm-hmm. And then the second part of that question was, how do you ensure they're not being left on, overnight or when the classroom?
Yeah, that we have no control over what the schools do. So it's just the honor system. Yep.
Okay. I guess also for DOE, beyond lighting, I guess it sounds like you've done some with the HVAC or the AC, but of course that's also adding to how much load you're pulling by adding more AC. Have you done much other energy efficiency measures besides lighting? Have you looked at equipment or other options?
I think our biggest effort, we started last summer, really going to all the schools and all the principals to shut down air units that maybe were operating in the classrooms. And that was a Herculean task because it's something that they're not focused on. Let me put it that way. We saved, how much did we cut, Ricky, in that summer period? I think it was,
yeah, just that effort alone, we probably saved about $1.5 million, because like Randy was saying, we don't have centralized systems. So we literally send vendors to turn off the ACs when the students aren't in there, because it's all right now set points determined by custodian.
Have you thought about a better system for managing that?
Absolutely, yeah. And we are trying to build one. The first system we built was the monitoring system to manage all these things. The next system is going to be AC controls. But unfortunately, AC controls won't work on 20-year-old AC systems. You have to replace the AC system first, which we're doing. And when that is replaced, then we can use modern control systems to centrally turn off systems. And that's the key for us. That's the biggest bang for the buck, because that's our second largest load next to lighting.
we want to try to incentivize the schools and the teachers to say the value that we save in conservation is what is the right thing to do. So we're trying to appeal to their higher sense of what is the right thing to do. That's step one. We now can measure exactly what the school's utilization is, and we're trying to create this threshold. If you go above that threshold, you guys got to work harder to cut your expense, your energy expense. And we think that is the most immediate approach to reducing our costs and moving to net zero. It is easier said than done, but we're working hard at it. I mean, the first step was last year, and we didn't have a system-wide cooperation with that. But we're going to go back. This year's a little different because they were in summer school, but we're going to continue to go back and use the tools that we have to demonstrate to them, here's where you are, this is where we want you to be, and move forward.
Okay, and then as far as implementing these kind of projects moving forward, and that this could, well, probably mainly for efficiency, but I mean, the GEMS funds are mostly depleted, I think, at this point. And, you know, barring there being an appropriation from the legislature, it seems like there's some resistance to, you know, exploring the use of performance contracts, which we've seen UH do successfully. So what is the resistance there, I guess? And I think it's one tool in a toolbox. We don't want to say anyone has to do one specific thing, but I think that it should be on the table as well.
Blue, you're absolutely correct. Mike and I had a brief conversation of what these contracts look like. I think the common time is about 7 years, but I need to have, you know, they've got more experience at this with us, but it's back to the same thing Ricky says, it's scale, right? They've got 10 campuses.
Yeah, we have a
we got a huge
we have a
range.
radically different profile for the use of these contracts. Also, all the low-hanging fruit has been sucked out by the LED replacements and the bad AC replacements. So what's left is very little margin for them, and we don't have scale. So these contracts, although fit for the UH and the community system, it really doesn't fit for your individual school and our distributed system. The best method for us has been the GEMS loan, because all we're doing is you're sucking out the financing side, which is what these ISCOs are doing to fund all these costs. And the DOE gets to keep all the savings, but we have to manage that process. So for us, the biggest benefit is to increase that GEMS loan program, because it's the most efficient and cost-effective use of capital for a distributed system like schools. For UH, it's a completely different thing because their whole load profile and scale is completely different. So one size does not fit all of them.
So you're saying you have explored it, like you've had someone, you know, get like look at what a ESCO might look like.
Yeah, they call us all the time and they do us these profiles, and it makes absolutely no sense for given what we've done already. We could, but it'll be at an incredible cost, and then there's no way for us to pay it back.
Okay. Okay, next question, and this can be for DOE and UH, and then I have a few questions for UH, and then I'll see if any other members have remaining questions. But for both DOE and UH, it seems like we're still seeing new buildings being constructed and new construction without not without energy efficiency being built in necessarily, or without solar rooftops, even if it's not obviously enough to power the entire facility. It's obviously a lot cheaper to do these kind of installations on new construction than to retrofit after the fact. So why is that still happening?
Oh my gosh, can I take this question?
Go ahead, man. Go for it.
I cannot tell you how many construction projects I intervene in, and I am told that it wasn't budgeted. I have raised this issue several times to Department of Energy, that I've got their ear. I've raised it to our management. I'm raising it to you right now. Require every new construction to maximize solar as part of it. Where is it going to get its energy from? Every building in Kaka'ako. Maybe we can't regulate the private, but we can regulate the state. And we could say that every new state building shall be net zero or shall maximize its solar footprint, and we have to fund it. There's 100 projects going on, maybe not 100, but there's dozens all the time. There's one of me. I review every plan set. I'm like, it's got to qualify for Hawaii energy efficiency rebates. if there's anything that's energized, and it's got to have solar or be solar ready. And the pushback that I get from, it seems like, everybody is, there's no budget. So I keep making the argument, the building's going to come with a front door, right? Well, yeah, it's going to come with a roof. It's going to come with a sewer system, a plumbing system, a fire alarm system, an HVAC system. It should include a solar system. It's going to have it just blows my mind that it's not just part of how you build a new building. To retrofit a building, everybody looks at solar. Oh, you can retrofit it later. We'll do it later. You're right. It's the wrong time, and it's most cost effective to build it in, build the infrastructure, the support, the conduits, everything, the penetrations. I am on your side. I am watching out. And every new building that comes up, I have made a requirement. It's like a Division 1 style specification that absolutely requires that for UH. It is not being adopted for some of these P3 projects. I can tell you Atherton. I have not seen solar in that plan yet, but I keep dragging the tin cup across the bars, and I'm like, where's the solar?
Yeah,
Wait.
no, thank you for that. And we've had, we had like an energy efficiency state lead by example bill a couple years in a row now that does incorporate those requirements for new construction. So hopefully next year we'll get it through. So, and that would, apply to DOE and UH also. So,
Can I ask, I'm sorry, Chair Lund,
sure, go ahead.
going back to Mr. Topping, just within the last year, UH Manoa opened a brand new science building on campus. Does that incorporate solar?
Yeah, it did. And I posted a link in the chat, and if you go there, you can find that building under both sustainable design and renewable energy. It's featured, its solar system is featured. It's maximized because we need to keep rooftop clearances for safety, for rooftop maintenance, for access to mechanical equipment, for fire safety, for fire code. But that was one project that we had to pause, and we had to find additional funding to get that solar installed. And the building came up, the life science building is the LEED silver building, and it has several efficiency components built into it. The specification that I'm referring to wasn't developed then when this thing was awarded. It is now, and the new buildings are coming up LEED gold and maybe even better, because we are really pushing the requirements. The problem is the more efficient, the more cost, right? So what's the first thing to go? Sustainability.
Yeah, more cost up front, less cost in the long term.
Exactly, and the cost of the world overheating is the true cost.
Yes, I think we're all on the same page. So I guess sticking with UH, I'll try to wrap this up quickly. Can you tell us more about the status of the ESCO for UH Manoa, and like how extensive will it be? How many buildings will it include?
Yep. So, like I said, we are moving cautiously. We have facilities departments, on staff engineers, and things that monitor our complicated air conditioning equipment for our research buildings and our libraries and critical loads. We are in phase 1. It's 8 buildings, and it's on one of those loops. I talked about the 5 cooling loops. I don't know if you remember that, but we've targeted one of those loops as sort of a quadrant of the university, and we're going to see how well it performs in terms of. So they're going to change out all this equipment, and they're going to kind of walk away, right? And then it's ours to sort of maintain, and we have to pay back the loan. But with the university, space usage may change. So what was once an office may now become a laboratory, or what was once a classroom may become several offices. And so things they're just changing, and we're trying to optimize our space utilization too. So there is a balance, but we're going to see how it goes, and it looks pretty positive. We selected a good partner, and we're moving forward with it. We want to see what the economic impact really is and what the operational impact really is. It's a lot of moving parts.
So it's a little bit of like a pilot project. It's not full campus wide just yet.
Yeah, so instead of going full, I mean, maybe it would have been a good idea to go through the whole campus, but we you know, there's a lot at stake here, and not every ESCO has gone right. It's gone well. You know, community colleges have a good success story, but there's a lot of them nationwide that you know, some of them came out good, some of them came out bad.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think that DAGS is in litigation for some of those, and DOT is too. It's not a panacea for everything. It has to be carefully looked at, analyzed. The long-term impacts are huge, and it's something you got to tread carefully.
Sure, I think there's a learning curve, but like you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because of one bad experience. So for Miles still, has the Green Revolving Fund been something that you guys have utilized for some of this work? And do you see that as, do you think there's ways that you can increase the usefulness of that, or if that model can be used for DOE or other state facilities as well?
Absolutely. This is thank you for asking this question, because we with Matt Lynch, you know, conceived of, actually I think with Matt and Ulupono conceived of this you know, Green Revolving Fund that has been done at other colleges, UC Irvine and others that we try to model the good things that they've done. And what it is we are funding the Green Revolving Fund with our energy rebates. So a lot of people, you know, they install a efficient air conditioner and they'll get a rebate from Hawai'i Energy, and they may use that rebate to sort of pay down the electricity bill for that month or that year. What we're doing is we're parking that in the Green Revolving Fund, and we are sort of trying to amass this fund, which then goes out and finances. It funds at zero interest, and it's internal cash fund to finance further efficiency projects. So with each efficiency project, you fund it and you pay back the fund, and then you fund another project and you pay back the fund. It was very hard to set up. It took my whole career here, about 4.5, almost 5 years here to set up. And now we have a donation arm that is going into it. And we were talking, so Hawaiian Electric Industries just made a donation into this. And we're really, you know, I think there's about $200,000 in total. You know, an AC project is millions of dollars. A lighting retrofit project is millions of dollars. So what we did was we did a pilot project, and we replaced these scientific freezers. The researchers not only have to have controlled spaces with their vent hoods and everything, but they have these freezers that keep cultures like cancer cultures or COVID cultures or whatever it is at negative 80 degrees. And so we have this inventory of 20-year-old non-Energy Star compliant negative 80 freezers. They're very expensive. They're like $10,000 each. And so when a new researcher comes in, they go, oh, great, there's a freezer. I don't have to buy one. And they just keep reusing it. So the biomedical building, the Cancer Research Center, just inventories of this stuff. So what we did was we replaced a few freezers. So the old freezers, the new freezers use half as much as an old freezer. One freezer uses as much as an entire household. So we just got to replacing, so the Green Revolving Fund, we did a pilot project. We replaced 4 freezers. We measured it. We measured it for time. We showed the amount of savings, and we were able to recover that savings back into the Green Revolving Fund every year. So we spent out 40 grand replacing 4 freezers. We are now have recovered, I mean, 10 or 15 grand back into the Green Revolving Fund. When we get that, we're gonna go deploy it again and do more projects. So, sorry, I know that was not really well prepared, but we have some money flowing in, and we got money flowing out, and we got money flowing back in. So it's revolving, and we're showing this, and we're really looking forward to do a project of significance to really demonstrate its capacity. And I hope that other state agencies and the city can, you know, follow this model once we get it set up and we show how well it works. And it's a way to sort of we call it self-ESCO.
Great.
Yeah, we have a similar application with all the reefers at schools. They're all literally over 25, 30 years old. These super inefficient that stores all the food for cafeterias. We have to replace literally 500 of them, and it's the same kind of model. That would be excellent.
Yeah, we have a description and a process and everything all drafted up. We'll share that with you, Ricky, and anybody else.
I want to stop my questions for now right there and make sure there's not other members that have questions here, or let me just check if anyone online is raising their hands. Okay, I think we just have Rep Capella. Go ahead.
One more question for AS Tanaka.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Just a quick question to follow up on just the funding that we have coming from the federal government, possibly for IC. Do you have a possible timeline on when these funds or how the DOE plans on spending these funds so that we can have like an idea or some sort of report?
Yes, I had a discussion with AS Hallett yesterday, albeit a brief one. We're going to continue that discussion as soon as they get there. They're allocating now or have a model already. They're just reconfirming that model. And hopefully I will have a discussion with him before the end of the week and begin to think what you want help for these ESSER's money, and we'll tell you if it qualifies or not. So hopefully sometime next week on the latter part, we'll have a first draft of it for you from my part on the OFO side. So we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have one last question I just thought of that you can just answer really briefly, maybe Miles. Do you see any role for UH or maybe DOE, although it doesn't look like that probably, but as the state transitions on Oahu, at least off the AES coal plant, do you think that there could be a role UH played in helping bridge that gap of energy supply?
Supply? I mean, we'd have to work with the utility. The utility won't take any of our energy, from that unless we sell it into them. So what they do is they partner with, energy companies that build solar farms, and that's the cheapest way to get it. You don't want to build onesie twosie. Can we reduce our load by putting more solar or putting more efficiency? Yes, but it's going to take money. We have PPAs in place. We're doing more and more and more. And is that the solution? Instead of giving it to HECO, give it to somebody else? I don't know. If it's cheaper, I guess that's all we're looking at right now. But we need to be in partnership with the electric utility, the gas utility, the communications utility. It's going to take a village.
All right, well, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to do this presentation to us today and answer our questions. And we want to be here to all work together to reach these goals and, address this as, like you mentioned, the cost of the planet overheating is greater than the cost of anything else. So, whatever we can do to help understanding that funding is an option. I think thinking creatively about solutions together will help us move this forward. So please feel free to let us know how we can help. And Chair Woodson, Chair Takayama, do you want to, any other comments? All right, if not, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.